really terrible situation. But, you know, I'm being honest with you and I'm learning from my experiences, and here are the mistakes I've made. I hope this is an entertaining video. Hey, how's it going? So I will keep this intro very short and sweet. 7 mistakes I've made as a helicopter pilot. You know, anyone in aviation, any pilot, you're gonna make mistakes. It's just a normal course. Things happen. As long as you try to do everything as safe as possible and you learn from your mistakes, I believe that's the best thing you can do. Now, these 7 mistakes I've done have happened in a variety of helicopters, some of them in the R22, some of them in the Cabri G2, the Robinson R44, the Instrom 280. Things I've learned, and I just wanna parlay that information onto you. So, you know, some of these things you're gonna be like, Devin, you're so stupid. How did you not know that? Like, this is the most obvious things that you should have known. Maybe yes, but once you're out of flight school and you're actually flying, you just learn a lot more. So these are my mistakes. If you have any questions about them, drop them in the comments below. If you've had any similar situations, I wanna know about them. If you find yourself enjoying this video, please smash the like button and subscribe. I really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for liking all the videos, and let's get into it. So this first one was in the Cabri G2 with a student. I'm gonna be using this R44 as a prop. Now, the Cabri G2 has 3 blades. This Robinson R22 only has 2 blades, but I'll try to describe it. I was practicing hovering auto rotations with a student. So basically we were standstill, and what you do is you chop the throttle off and you allow the helicopter to settle, and then right before you hit the ground, you raise the collective and cushion the landing using the inertia of the rotor system. So it's a pretty high risk maneuver. Things can get weird and squirrely really fast. So this student wasn't that experienced with them. And I was pretty new to the Cabri G2 at this point, not that much experience. So what I had done in the Robinson R22 when I was teaching these is chop the throttle, allow the aircraft to cushion, and then right before you hit, you raise collective and you just use all of that inertia in the rotor system. So the Robinson platform is 2 blades, so it's always 50% of the disc is on either side. The blades cannot get out of phase. However, the Cabri G2 has 3 blades and it's a fully articulated rotor system, so you can get into what's called ground resonance, and that's what happened on this situation. Close the throttle, we came down, we hit, and I had kept the collective up because that's kind of what I was taught and I wasn't really thinking, and we started to feel the helicopter shake pretty aggressively, back and forth, back and forth. And I was like, oh my God, this is ground resonance. Like, we're gonna flip the helicopter. And I just kept the collective up. And immediately, the first thing you should do after every hover auto, and I do this, and I'll do this for every helicopter, is after you set down, lower the collective, take the pitch out of the blades, and just neutralize the situation. But I kept the collective up thinking like, oh, that's just what I had done, to use all of the inertia in the rotor system to cushion that landing. But in the Cabri G2, because of that articulated rotor system, we kind of got into ground resonance. Now, everything was fine. The helicopter was not damaged, but I was really shooken up. My student was pretty shooken up too, because the helicopter shook pretty violently and we almost flipped it. Like, honestly, it was not a good situation. So the big takeaway from that is, after your hover auto, get the collective down, neutralize the situation, take the pitch out of the blades. Now I know. So this one is pretty short and sweet. In my entire time of flying of 1,200 flight hours at this point, I've only had the low fuel light come on twice. Once in the Robinson R22, once in the Cabri G2. There's not really much to say about this. It's dangerous. You should never let your fuel get below that point. You know, the VFR flight requirement fuel minimums for helicopters are 20 minutes. And if you see that low fuel light come on, you have less than 20 minutes of fuel. So it's not a safe situation. It's really, it's really dangerous. And, you know, both of the times I was at the airport, I was on the airport. So I was able to just set it down. But, you know, if you see that low fuel light, you're getting down on the ground immediately. Running out of fuel is a big cause of accidents. It's really scary. It really pisses me off that I've done that. I really tried to bring more fuel than I ever need, and there's not much to say, just don't do it, but that's hypocritical of me. It's a good learning experience for me, but I really try to not let that happen, but those are big mistakes, and I'm just being honest with you. Okay, so this next one, really interesting, and I'm still not totally sure what happened, but we were practicing, it is really interesting, but I'll get to it. We were practicing quick stops. So quick stop, as the name implies, basically you're like on a takeoff roll, like you're taking off, and then for some reason, like maybe another airplane cuts in front of you and you need to stop quickly. You apply aft cyclic to stop yourself. You lower the collective so you don't balloon up. If you're taking off and you just apply aft cyclic, your nose will pitch up and you'll go up. So you apply aft cyclic and lower the collective and the coordination of the pedals as well. So take off, aft cyclic, level the helicopter. I was in the Robinson R22 and we did the quick stop, and I don't know if, I think we might have gotten into like a vortex ring state situation, but as we came to level and returned to the hover, I was pulling collective and I was settling with power. I was coming down and my RPMs were dropping and I had no RPMs left, and I was raising everything and I just kept coming down. Now, potentially I was holding onto the throttle too much, or my student was holding onto the throttle too much, but for some reason the RPM started to come down. So after we leveled the helicopter and we're trying to come down to a hover, we just kept sinking, and we hit a little bit. It really wasn't that hard. I'm just being honest with you. Like, we hit, but right before we hit, the governor brought the RPMs back up. I guess takeaways from this are just be careful with quick stops, and I'm kind of just talking to myself at this point, but I'm still not exactly sure what happened, and it made me be super aware of quick stops and do them actually higher than necessary. Especially in a governed helicopter, it's really nice to have that governor because you know it's fighting to bring your RPMs back up and to keep them in the green the whole range, but I guess I just need to be careful. And if you practice them like 20 to 30 to 40 feet up, you know, you have a lot of altitude to try to fix the situation and you're not super low. So we hit, it really wasn't that hard, but really good learning experience about RPM and RPM management and being careful with quick stops, and maybe there was some vortex ring state connected to it somehow. So this one was a really good learning experience as well. All of these were really good learning experiences. This one happened in the Enstrom 280. I was with a student. We were doing hovering practice, and the student made a pretty aggressive pedal turn. So they used the pedal and we turned, and then as soon as we stopped the turn, or he was trying to stop the turn, he smashed the other pedal, or he pushed the other pedal, stepped on it pretty aggressively, and this caused the RPMs to drop. You know, the main rotor and the tail rotor are interconnected, so when he smashed that tail rotor, that's pulling power from the engine, so our RPM started to drop. So we had like spun pretty hard, pushed the right pedal, and that drew all the power from the engine, and our RPM started to drop, and we kind of just softly floated down to the ground. Once again, I have no reason to lie to you. We didn't hit the ground too hard. I would tell you if, and I've got some in here, where I actually made really big mistakes and put the helicopter in danger. But this one, we did the pedal turn, we ran out of RPMs because he pushed that right pedal in, and we kind of just softly floated down to the ground. You know, in the Enstrom, you do not have a governor, so you have to modulate those RPMs. And coming from the Robinsons and coming from the Cabries, I'm just not super sharp on that throttle management. It's pretty weird, and it's pretty difficult. It's not difficult, but it's hard to get like really sharp on it. And I just wasn't prepared for the right or left pedal, the RPMs to drop, and I just didn't bring the engine back up fast enough. So really good learning experience with the Enstrom and having to modulate the throttle, not only with collective movements, but with pedal movements. So another great learning experience. Luckily, no damage to the aircraft, no damage to the people on board, but really big eye-opener. All right, so this one is probably the one that makes me the most uncomfortable. I really learned a whole lot from this in a lot of different ways, but really not a great situation. So I was asked to do this commercial pilot job. I don't know, I probably had like 500 hours at this point, so like fairly confident, but still very new. So someone asked me to like help them fly their Robinson R44 from one location to another location. I was watching the weather the night before, I was watching the weather the day of, and the weather was just like not great. It was pretty marginal the whole time. You know, like there were breaks in the weather, but it really was not a great situation. But I thought in the back of my head, and this is that dangerous part that can kill you, I was like, I can probably make this work. And I was doing it as safely as I I possibly could, and I was looking for the routes, the airports that had the best weather to get from this location to this location. It was like a 4-hour flight, like it was a really long flight. So we took off, and I honestly shouldn't have taken off, but I was there was a ton of commercial pressure, job stress, you know, it's like, we need to get this done. And I could have said no, but I buckled to the stress, and I was like, you know what, I can get this done. I will find the way to get this done safely, get the job done, get their itis, whatever you want to call it. And like, as it was happening, I was like, I know I'm suffering from this, but I still like fell into the trap. Really scary, but really good learning experience. So we took off, and I should have known from the second we left the airport that like, this is not good. But I kept going, and we were pretty low, like we were scud running. And scud running is terribly dangerous. It's absolutely brutal. I've only done it a couple times, and it sucks every time. Scud running is when, like, if this is the base of the trees, you're just like pretty much like very low to the trees because there was like a low cloud deck. Oh, I hate, like, but the reason I started this YouTube channel was to like educate you guys and educate myself. But we were scud running, and as we were scud running, like the visibility was dropping, getting closer. And I was like, nope, I can't go that way anymore because I'm gonna fly myself into the clouds, and right beneath me is the ground. So I was like, okay, this plan has not worked. Let's figure out where to go. So I turned to the right. So I was going this way, and there were clouds there. So I was like, okay, let's turn to the right. So I turned to the right, clouds there. Then I was like, okay, this is not good. Turned to the left, clouds there. And I was like, okay, this is really, like, I'm finding myself in a hole. And I turned around to get out the way I had come in, and there was nothing there. Like, there was no way out. The visibility was not there. So I was in a hole. So like pretty low clouds, trees, and in a hole. And the nice thing in a helicopter is, like, unlike an airplane, you need that forward speed. I was able to like slow down. I don't know, I was like going like 20 knots, and I was like, okay, so I'm in a Robinson R44. I had full instrument, so I was like, all right, I have messed up, but I need to keep myself alive, and I need to not crash this aircraft. So what am I going to do? I am going to contact approach and get an instrument approach back in, and I will deal with the repercussions of my actions and of my decision making, because this is not an IFR rated ship, you know. The Robinson R44 has all the instruments to do it, but you cannot actually do instrument training. It doesn't have pitot heat, it doesn't, which is dangerous because you could get pitot icing. It doesn't have autopilot. So I was like, and I knew I would probably get in trouble. So I was like, you know what, screw it. I'm just gonna contact air traffic control, get a pop-up instrument, get vectors in for an instrument approach, and I will deal with the consequences. So as I was like working on the GPS, flying in this circle in this hole, I luckily found a hole and got myself out, and then the rest of the flight was uneventful. Not good weather for the rest of the flight, but like, it makes me sick to think about it, because like the situation deteriorated very quickly, and I got lucky to get myself out of it. And I could have gone through the clouds and gone above. Super sketchy. The whole situation was really sketchy. I got really lucky that I was able to find a hole out eventually. Really good learning experience about not caving to pressures, knowing my weather minimums. So like, that really shot up my weather minimums. It was still technically probably within special VFR weather minimums, but I mean, it just makes me sick to my stomach to think about like that situation. And I guess that's like just what the real world is outside of flight school. You just learn how to do things, and you get yourself into situations, and you get yourself out of situations. And you know, I'm definitely a better, smarter, safer pilot for it. And you know, if you survive those events, you're gonna be better for it, hopefully, and you learn from it. But like, really crappy, really terrible situation. But you know, I'm being honest with you, and I'm learning from my experiences, and here are the mistakes I've made. I hope this is an entertaining video. All right, so this one was failing my CFII check ride. CFI or CFII, what it stands for is Certified Flight Instructor. So you're a flight instructor already, plus your instrument rating. So you're allowed to teach instrument procedures, teach instrument flying, Certified Flight Instructor plus instrument. So off the bat, failing a check ride is not that big of a deal. It doesn't matter. No one in your no one further down the road is going to care, like, oh, did you fail a check ride? All right, get out. Let's get the next guy in. No one really cares. It's not that big of a deal, but it sucks, and it's expensive, and it doesn't feel good, and you spend all this time preparing for it. So we were on an instrument approach, and really stupid, and I should have realized it, but things happen on your check ride. You know, you're just under a lot of stress. You're trying to perform. And your CFI check ride, your Certified Flight Instructor Instrument check ride, is crazy because you have to do all the flying, all the communications to ATC, all the instrumentation setup, the GPSs, the radios, and everything, while instructing to the DPE, or to the examiner, the designated pilot examiner. So the workload for this check ride is probably the highest of any check ride. You just have so much to do: teaching, talking, flying, programming. It's a lot. I'm making excuses. So we were doing an instrument approach in. I was under the foggles, the glasses, so I could only see my instruments. You can't see outside. And so we were doing this approach where you flew out, you did a procedure turn, and then you turned yourself back in. So I was at like probably 2,500 on my way out, did the procedure turn, came back in, and I was supposed to hit this waypoint at 1,100. So it was like probably like 10 miles away. So I was supposed to be here at 1,100 feet. So started at 2,500, did the procedure turn, and I was like just talking my way through, programming everything, and I hit this waypoint at 2,100. So I descended from 2,500 to 2,100, but I was supposed to be at 1,100. I hope I explained that correctly. I was supposed to be at this point at 1,100. I descended down to 2,100, and I read the altimeter wrong. I just read it wrong. So I was like, okay, cross over, and I thought, and this was like the last maneuver of the check ride, and I'm like, I'm good to go. I'm gonna pass. Like that. After this approach, I'm good. So I pass over, and I'm at 2,100 instead of 1,100. I was 1,000 feet off. Like totally not okay. Like really bad, like not right. I was completely in the wrong. Passed over at 2,100 feet, supposed to be at 1,100. And the DPE, the examiner, he points to the altimeter, and it's like 2,100, and I'm like, yeah, 2,100. Then I look at my approach plate, and I'm supposed to be at that waypoint at 1,100. And I was like, no way. Like I did not descend to be at the right waypoint. And it was like, this is so stupid, because I should have known. Like there should have been so many red flags. Like you're supposed to descend 1,000 feet. And I guess I was just, I don't know. And this is why you have check rides to bring up things that you should fix on, things that you need to fix. So no, it's not like it's the end of the world, and it really didn't matter. I just went out another day after doing some more training, talked to the instructor, talked to the DPE, and went out and did it on the other day and did it perfectly. But a really good learning experience. Like check your altimeter, try not to become task saturated. But it was actually like, I'm really not upset about it, because it was a great learning experience. It was like, it just illuminated, it was like a really big light bulb moment. Like, how did I mess that up? And it made me like, it just unlocked another part of my brain to understand instrument flying so much more. And I really am actually very appreciative to the experience, but it was a big mistake. I failed my CFII check ride, and it is what it is. All right, so the final one, and if you're sticking through me with this, I really appreciate it. It's actually like a really fun thing to talk about, all of these, and like it's really good learning for me, and hopefully you guys are getting something out of this. This last one was at a towered airport, and you know, I love towered airports. I love air traffic control communications. I love working on the radio. I love working with air traffic controllers. They're really smart, they're really good people, and they're really good at their jobs. So this situation was at a towered airport. I was with a student. So let's say that this is the runway. Here's the runway. And so this is a crazy situation, because I messed up for sure, but air traffic control also kind of messed up in this situation. So basically, the winds were coming from this direction. So let's say the winds were coming from this direction. So I was here holding short, and I was like expecting to take off on this runway and like take off into the wind. So the wind was coming from here, and I was holding short, and then they said, helicopter, whoa, whoa, whoa. fly the runway heading, you are clear for takeoff on this runway. That's not what he said. He said you are clear for, so let's say this is runway 2 and this is runway 20. So I was expecting to be clear for takeoff on runway 2 into the wind, because everything is done into the wind. You would never take off in a tailwind or land with the tailwind. So he said, helicopter, whatever, you were clear for takeoff on runway 20. So he cleared me for takeoff on this direction with a tailwind. But I said, all right, I'm clear for takeoff, whatever. And I went and took off in this direction, the opposite direction. So I took off on the wrong runway, in the wrong direction, the opposite direction of what he told me. And so I climbed up and I was like, tower, confirmed that I was cleared for takeoff on this way, cleared to take off to the north or whatever on runway 2. And he said, negative, you were cleared for takeoff on runway 20. And I was like, oh my God, I just made a massive mistake. So just to be clear, I was cleared to take off in this direction, but I took off in this direction. This is the right direction to take off because of the wind. And that's what I was thinking. You know, you're always looking at the windsocks on the field. So I was not thinking, so I just took off into the wind. And so I was like, I thought it was clear for takeoff, whatever, in this direction. And he said, no. So he said, all right, whatever, make a right 360 and rejoin the correct downwind. And then I was like, I'm so sorry. And he said, no harm, no foul. And I was like, what? And I didn't ask him to repeat it because it was clear. He said, no harm, no foul. So what I think happened is the wind was kind of shifty. So they were switching runways. And they eventually did switch to the correct runway. But I did the right thing because of the aircraft performance and what's safe, but I did the wrong thing because I did not listen to air traffic control and I took off on the wrong direction. So this did not result in a pilot deviation. Everything was fine. He said no harm, no foul. And I think he knew as well that like he took off on the wrong runway, but he took off into the wind. So I did the right thing. So I think we both made like 50% equal mistakes. But that was a really big learning situation. I should have asked for clarification. I should have asked like, hey, what are the winds? Like, I should have just been more clear with him, and I should have just asked for clarification. So really good learning experience. No one got in trouble. Everything was fine, but you know, there was a miscommunication and I deviated from what ATC said, but ATC I was not in trouble for it. All right, so there it is. 7 mistakes I've made as a helicopter pilot. Now, if I'm being honest, there are so many more things I've done wrong, things I should have done differently. And as I fly more, I'm getting better. I want you guys to know that. Like, I'm not, this list is not who I am as a pilot. And it's not, a list of mistakes doesn't define any pilot. It doesn't define any person. You know, people are gonna make mistakes. You're gonna make mistakes as an aviator, and these are some of mine that I've learned a lot from. These were situations that could have gone worse, and I'm lucky and grateful that they didn't. And if you make mistakes out there in your aviation career, it's not the end of the world, you know? Try to protect the aircraft, try to protect your life, try to protect the life of other people in the aircraft, try to protect the life of other aircrafts and the people in those, try to protect the life of people on the ground. What we do is dangerous and things are gonna go wrong. And as long as you try to mitigate those risks, I think, and handle the situation the best you can is the best thing you can do. I wish some of the, actually, no, I don't. I was gonna say I wish some of these didn't happen, but that's not true, you know? I've learned so much from these and they've made me such a better, smarter, safer pilot. So I guess that's it. I'll quit rambling. If you have any questions about any of these situations, you know, they're each worthy of their own video. All of them were situations that like I could elaborate on and try to find the conclusion to, but I'm done rambling. Thank you all for sitting through this. I really enjoyed making this video. If you enjoyed it too, please smash the like button and subscribe. It is kind of uncomfortable to just go out there and tell the world and tell the FAA and tell other helicopter pilots and other airplane pilots and just people on YouTube all the dumb things you've done and all the mistakes you've made. So if you enjoyed it, please smash the like button. But I do this out of learning for myself and for everyone else. And I will see you guys on the next one. Take care.